Well, good evening, everybody, and we will call this meeting of the Board of Education Legislative and Advocacy Committee to order. We've got a lot going on, but we have so much going on, we're going to make it a short meeting. But we did want to start off, most importantly, with an update from Steve Carroll, live from Jefferson City, to update us on what's going on. Steve, it looks like we lost his audio for a second. Steve, are you there? We lost you for a second.
Yeah, I lost it. Sorry about that. Things are crazy. The Senate's still in session and appropriations meetings going on right now, so I apologize.
Well, go ahead. Start your update and we'll let you get back to work.
Okay. Well, as you all know, it's from my reports and just your own media observations. It's been a crazy legislative session, to say the least. The Senate being dysfunctional for first couple months of the session. You can tell it's an election year and a redistricting year. We've been tracking over 500 pieces of legislation. That's not counting the thousands of amendments and bill substitutes out there. There's been a lot of crazy legislation filed. Obviously, I think because of politics, folks trying to stir up their base and get them ready. But many of the bills that have been filed by the education choice groups, we've been able to pretty much control so far. I think, for example, the statewide charter school expansion bill, we've killed that, I believe, for the year. The very bad version of Parents' Bill of Rights and like the critical race theory 1619 project, we pretty much killed that, I believe, for the year. The board recall bill, I think that's dead. The November election for school board members, I think that's dead. The party affiliation bill for school board members, I believe we have that killed for the year. The Parents' Bill of Rights, there is a watered down version that was amended on last week to Senate Bill 761 that was in my report last week that you have as well. That's out there. That was third read in the Senate today. And then there's also what I would call a small omnibus education bill that came out of the House Bill 1750 that was heard in Senate Education Committee this week, that was not passed out. We'll see what the chairman does. She may load it up with all kinds of crazy stuff, and if she does, that'll just make it easier for us to kill it on the Senate floor with a filibuster. The one bill that's still out there that barely passed the House, that's on the Senate calendar, is House Bill 1814, which is the open enrollment bill. That bill could be brought up, although we feel like that we could filibuster the bill. Now, the St. Louis Public Schools has been exempted from this bill with some language in the bill, but we'd still just soon kill the bill outright, which would be in our best interest, I believe, in the long run. The bill, obviously, the number one bill we've been working on this year, House Bill 1552, the local charter funding bill. That bill barely passed the House, was in the Senate. It was passed out of the Senate Education Committee, as you know. It was put on the Senate calendar. However, the Senate leadership thought that they would do a test run and use Senate Bill 869, which was the sister bill. They did that several weeks ago. We showed that we were going to filibuster the bill. So Senate leadership realized that they had an issue to deal with. And so they finally decided to come around to take a look at the language that we had really started working on last year with Don Thalhuber, who is the Democrat in the Senate, one of their staffers, and he's really good with the foundation formula. Came up with the idea, instead of taking our local funds, that they would use state GR dollars through the foundation formula to give the charter schools additional money. Kansas City really didn't like this at the beginning because they felt like they had negotiated off of their MOU agreement, although we felt like, why would Kansas City want to put it in statute anyway? And so finally, the charter schools, Senate leadership, everybody signed off on the bill that they would use state aid through the foundation formula to support better, more charter school funding. So it will not come from our local funds. It will not come from Kansas City local funds. So that bill was brought up. It was perfected. It was sent to the GAFO Senate Committee, which they voted it out yesterday, and it was perfected today, or third read today in the Senate by a 29-5 vote. It's now in the House. It is all before the House Fiscal Review Committee. The sponsor of the local charter funding bill is the vice chair of that committee. So pretty sure it's going to come out of there. We believe the House will pass it and send it to the governor. So hopefully that takes care of this issue for the time being and saves the St. Louis Public School 18 to $20 million. So this week also, the Senate took up for markup the state budget. And we had some good things happen in that for us as well. We were able to keep our $2.5 million for our reading literacy program for the second year in a row. The Senate version went with the governor's recommendation, which made it part of the core budget. So that's a good sign. Carla May helped us with that. So I'm very happy with Senator May to make sure that that stayed in the bill. And then also, I think part of the negotiating behind the scenes on our so-called local charter funding bill 1552 to get the Senate leadership to go along with it was that the Senate leadership would have to go along with the Senate Appropriations Chairman and Vice Chairman to fully fund the transportation formula for school districts in the state. And that came to $214.4 million. And I think in talking with Angie Banks earlier, she had texted me that this would mean approximately $6.25 million additional revenue to the St. Louis Public Schools. So we're pretty happy with that. I believe that the Senate version in conference committee will keep that $214 million in the budget. I believe we will. So we're certainly happy with that. We were also, the Senate Appropriations Committee took out a $30 million voucher program that was called Close the Gap. So that's out. And then they also put in $100,000 for the St. Louis Public School City Alumni Broadcasting Association. And also taking from our $2.5 million for our literacy program, the Senate put in an overall $25 million program for literacy programs for all school districts. In addition, we were able to get in $100,000 into the DESE budget for them to hire a mental health coordinator to work with school districts throughout the state. And then also we were successful in getting $11 million in the budget for homelessness and school health initiatives. So we're happy with those things. So now the Senate will next week third read these budget bills, and then they will head into conference. We have to have the budget done by 5 p.m. May 6th, which is a week before the end of session. So that's kind of where we're at with the major provisions. I will tell you tonight, the House just adjourned about 30 minutes ago, and the bill was that the last bill that they perfected was House Joint Resolution 110, which is a constitutional amendment to put the Parents' Bill of Rights in the Constitution. And it's a terrible bill. They'll probably third read it in the House. It'll go to the Senate, and we'll just kill it there. So it's not going to get any traction at this point. So that's kind of where we're at. That's a quick overview. I think most of you have been following my weekly reports, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that I probably ought to get back.
Clemens has had his hand up for a while. Mr. Clemens.
Thank you, Steve. Good job for all of us on 1552. I believe also we were able to clean up the language on virtual schools, that the schools have to be hosted by a school district and can't be their own LEA. In some other states, they've had charter school LEA virtual schools who rob tuition from other schools. So that's some improvement on it. I appreciate that.
No, thanks for bringing that up, Brian. I forgot to mention that, but you're absolutely right. The original virtual expansion bill, Senate Bill 648, was just terrible. It would have basically made, charter schools their own LEAs. You would have had statewide charter schools, quite frankly, is what it would have ended up being. And I think with this watered down version, and also if a student attends a virtual program, that local dollars stay with the school district. So we don't lose any of that. But you're right, Byron. It's a much better bill and something I think that that we can live with. So I appreciate all your all's help on that as well. I know AFT is Local 420 has really worked hard this year, and I appreciate your help for me down here as well in Jeff City.
Any other questions for Steve? Steve, I had two just to put you on the spot.
I'm used to being on the spot.
That were on my list. Do you have an update on? Yeah, I know you can do it. I know you can do it. The literacy bill that came out of the Senate. I don't know the number, but Senator Arthur and the Senator O'Loughlin's literacy bill, and the other one is the lead in the water bills. There was one in the House, and then there was one in the Senate by Jill Shoup. Any update on those?
Yes, I'm sorry. The literacy bill was heard in the House Education Committee this week. They are scheduled to vote that out of the House Education Committee tomorrow. So, time is kind of the essence here. For the most part, I think what they've kind of changed the bill a little bit. I think from talking with Dr. Adams that should the bill pass, I don't think it's going to affect us that much from what we're currently doing. It could affect some other school districts that may not have as extensive literacy program as we do now. So that bill, it's over in the House. We'll see what happens with it. It will still have to go through a Rules Committee in the House and probably will have to go through fiscal oversight as well. And then the other, the lead drinking water, the House bill is basically dead. Dottie Bailey had that bill. It's been stuck in House Rules Committee. The other bill is Jill Shoup's that she's pushing. Not sure it's going to get across the finish line. In talking with Dr. Adams, it seems like we're covering most of that anyway right now, with maybe exception of the screenings. But I've talked with City Hall about it. I know that Jackie Barget, their lobbyist, called me today about whether the city, if there's any extra cost, whether the city could get involved to help us through either state or federal grants. So we're currently looking at that. And talking again, in fact, Dr. Adams and I talked about it today, and he thought the potential cost to us could be 1.2 million additional dollars, but that in Jill Shoup's bill, there is the ability for us to reach out through DNR and the feds to get grants to hopefully cover any cost should that bill make it through.
Yeah, I just didn't know because I knew there were two. I hadn't followed them closely, so thank you. That is a good update. Emily, you had your hand up.
I did, but I'm not sure if my question pertains to Steve or this group in general, or maybe even another body, but I do have questions about the transportation money, the 6.25 million that we're supposed to be receiving, and kind of how that's going to play out in concrete ways. So that might not be a question for Steve. I just wanted to have that conversation.
That's probably not, but I mean, that bill it comes through the formula.
Right.
Obviously, I don't know if Angie, Dr. Banks, when she sent me back that we would receive approximately 6.2 million additional dollars. If that was before we would get hit with a 30% fire inefficiency reduction, or if that would be after that reduction. So I don't know from Ms. Banks which is the case on that, but regardless, I mean, that's certainly additional dollars that the school board and the district can determine how they will best use it, I would assume.
I think that's my question, is kind of who's in charge of determining how that gets spent. It's the board. And so I'd be interested, just in terms of advocacy, parents are very concerned about transportation and the way that transportation happens. And so I think the question that they're going to have if I present this to them at our PAC meeting tomorrow is, great, we have more money. What does that mean in terms of concrete improvements for the transportation issues that we've experienced in the past? So again, Steve, that's probably not your realm. I just wanted to flag that particular comment up. Thank you. But thank you very much, Steve, for everything you've done this year. You've been very helpful from the parent perspective, giving us an opportunity to come to Jeff City and make our voices heard. And I think, and for taking time to speak to our parents. I know that a lot of the parents were very interested in some of these bills that you shared that have been killed and that have been changed to kind of help us and be more helpful to us. So I'm really excited to give these updates to parents, and thank you very much for all your hard work.
Thank you, Emily. And I appreciate you all coming down as parents, because that's the most involved that I've seen parents being involved in Jeff City in years. And so really appreciate that grassroots effort and the help that you've given.
Steve, I have a
Yeah,
question.
sure. Oh, go ahead, Tony.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding the lead bill. That's Jill Shoop's. Jill Shoop is carrying that. For some reason, I thought Senator Roberts was carrying that.
No, that's Jill's bill.
And you're
I
thinking
can't
it's
remember the number. I've got so many numbers going off in my head, but I think Roberts is helping her with her, but it is Jill's bill that she introduced.
and you're saying you don't think it's going to go?
No, I'm not saying that. It very well has a chance. I'm just saying there's a chance, because we only have 3 weeks left,
Right.
that things are just a little crazy right now. Any bill that hasn't got across the finish line, it's
It's
going to be
right.
tough, because
then-
they're going to be dealing with the budget really for the next 2 weeks.
Right. And then my other question is, you were referencing the funds and how they're coming. Or these funds that are coming from the CARES Act dollars on the state level, in regards to the dollars that you're saying that they're putting out there for us, or is this just out of the budget itself? Because I'm trying to determine if these are dollars that we will be getting for the next 3 years, or is this just part of the state budget as a whole dollars?
This is GR. This is state dollars.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
Okay.
I mean, the transportation funding, this could be a one-time $214 million hit. I mean, they wouldn't necessarily have to do it next year, obviously. Now, I think that there's a chance that it could be, because on the House side today, in Appropriation Bill 2019, the House has the crazy idea they want to give $1 billion back in $500 and $1,000 tax credits. And I don't think that's going to fly in the Senate, because the Senate wants to use the additional $1 billion that we have in reserve for programs such as continuing to fund the transportation program and stuff. So we'll see how that plays out, but I'll know more next week after they go to conference committee and how things will be.
Okay. And I want to ditto what they're saying. To be honest, I don't think any of this would have been possible without all the team, between the union, the parents, Matt, Steve, all of us coming together is really showing the impact that we're able to have in Jeff City. And I think this is a huge start. I know, Steve, you all have been fighting for the past 5 years, in regards to trying to get this 15 or 17 million or 14 million. It's always some transportation or whatever the case may be but for us to be able to come this way, I think it shows strength and unity. And I'm very impressed with what you guys were able to do.
Thank you again. I appreciate everything you all have done, because whenever I've reached out to you all and say I need some help, you've been there and you've given it. So thanks. But you're right. It is a team effort. It certainly has been. It's really shown this year everything that we've been able to accomplish so far. Let's just hope we don't blow it in the last 3 weeks of session. I hate to remind everybody, but the last day of session is Friday the 13th. So hopefully we'll get some good luck.
Always the optimist, Steve. I appreciate that.
No, trying to be anyway.
Well, I know you've been there. Any other questions for Steve? All right, great. Well, Steve, we'll let you go. Thank you for everything. And
sure, I'll be putting out my
report
report tomorrow to you. So thanks
Thank
a lot.
you.
I'll talk to you later.
Thanks. Before we adjourn, I did just want to talk a little bit on our agenda. We talked about future issues and the future makeup of the committee. So this is an ad hoc committee, and it is set to expire after the term is over. So you hear that's Friday the 13th of next month. So we will be presenting this to be a permanent committee of the Board of Education. But in doing so, we do have to talk about the makeup of the committee. We initially, had it based, really, I keep saying, on Kansas City's model, and used sort of the positions that they had on it to make up this committee. It seems like this is kind of our core group of people that always show up and are interested and participate. So, but I'm curious to anybody's thoughts for a couple of things. One, and you don't have to give this to me tonight. You can email it to me or get me offline or whatever. But just as a future issue, if we want to expand the committee, if we want additional people on it, different people on it, if we need, whatever we need, whatever you think we need, people that would be interested and willing to participate. I don't necessarily have any thoughts on that, but I'm open to suggestions because I want to make it as successful as possible. We don't, and then the other thing is if we want to start considering about issues already that we have maybe left on the back burner since we were focused mostly on 1552 this year. At least I know I was. We still have our other two legislative priorities, which we have not revisited. So I think that might be a good thing to revisit over the summer as we kind of reset the committee. And so I'm open to ideas on that as well. And the one other thing really, last year, we had sort of a legislative roundtable over the summer. I think I have to go back. I think that was shortly after adjournment. And so I would recommend that we do that again. I mean, we really had a great turnout and made a lot of good connections, relationships with legislators, and I'm sure they'd be willing to do that as well. So I'm open for thoughts on that. If we need to change the format, if we do the same thing, if we don't do it, if we absolutely want to do it, open for anybody's thoughts. And I think that's all I wanted to put out there. So anyone want to jump in on any of those issues? Emily, is your hand still up or is it back
No,
up?
I'm raising my hand to speak again.
Okay.
I'm a very good student, so I raise my hand when I want to be called
I
on.
appreciate it.
I want to second the call for doing some kind of legislative roundtable. I think that that's really, really important to bring all of the stakeholders that are in this particular space, so everybody that's a part of this meeting, as well as expanding to interested parents, parents who participated in our day of action or were very involved in our advocacy efforts this year. We have a number of parents who really expressed a desire to keep going with this, that they want to be a part of future action days. And I think an opportunity to speak to their legislators, I'm presuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when we talk about a legislative roundtable, we're talking about like our St. Louis delegation, like we're talking about like our representatives from our region, or
Yeah, no, the city delegation and sort of like the inner ring.
Yep.
Is
Yeah.
who I think we invited, or at least that's who shows up.
Yeah, and I think that that's exactly what I was hoping and thinking we could do. I'm happy to use the Parent Action Council channels to advertise that. I would like the opportunity for parents from across the district to be a part of those conversations. And Matt, I can email you this separately, but in terms of expanding the legislative committee, I think it would be great to have permanent parent spots on this committee, one or two, maybe the chair of the Parent Action Council. At some point, it will not be me in the future. For the foreseeable future, it will, but at some point, just that spot be permanently kept. If it's a permanent subcommittee of the Board of Education, keeping a spot or two open for parents permanently, I think is a really important thing. But I very much want to echo the call for a legislative roundtable, and I'm very interested in helping make that happen and in finding participants and making that a priority. I think that's a really important thing and will help put us on a good foot to, in the future, be not so reactive, but be more proactive at creating the environment that we want to see. And I'm very interested in making that happen.
I can't put my hand up because I'm driving, but can I? Emily, in regards to what you're saying, I don't think that roundtable meeting would necessarily be for all the parents to come or parents of that magnitude, because the roundtable is more the district. I think it would be helpful to have one or two representatives, definitely like what you're saying. If you have the president or whomever will be representing a PAC, if you can have one or two people at that meeting so they can be at the roundtable, so that the parents, the role would be to basically disseminate that information to all the parents to let them know this is what it is, this is what we're doing, and what have you. But we should have representation at the table, because I think that gives you all better insight as when we're doing and going up talking about the bills and talking about the process and how things are going. You kind of have put faces with names for different elected officials. I just would not encourage for what you're asking for. I think that's where those parents who live within those different districts really should be a part of whatever town hall or community meeting those individuals, elected officials, are having. And then, making sure you guys have representation at the table means a lot, because your role will be going back to your PAC to say, this is what's going on, this is what we should make sure we're doing.
Yeah, I think I was thinking of two different things there, and I think I conflated the two. So I apologize if I was maybe making those two things mush together. But I was thinking that in terms of the legislative committee itself having a permanent seat is what I was asking for. But then, we can certainly talk about the structure of the roundtable and what that would look like and how many attendees we would have. I just wanted to make sure that we had parents represented there. So in terms of the number of parents, we can definitely talk about that. And we can certainly make sure that that's like a targeted invite type of thing. I certainly don't want it to just be fling the doors open and anybody come. I do think that needs to be a little more considered. But your point about, parents are always encouraged to go to the town halls and communicate to their particular representatives, I think is really important. And I'll be sure to emphasize that if anybody's like, why weren't more parents invited? I can say, but you can always contact your legislators. Like, you can always go and see them. So I'll make sure to emphasize that. But yeah.
And Matt, on the pillars that we have, I'm just curious. I know that on the legislative piece, we were really focused on the bills on the state level. Are we looking at anything in regards to the violence, to the guns, things of that nature, safety, mental illness? I'm trying to understand if that was some of our priorities, and if so, now that we've gotten Jeff City somewhat under control, I was looking at how we would use the legislative committee to start focusing on those particular areas.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. Now that we'll have some time to sort of reset, we can maybe spend revisit those issues. And I haven't thought about how to do that, just because, again, we were really very much focused on 1552, but it does feel like there's a big relief. And so now we've got other stuff we can work on, and we need to, because they're so important. And when we did talk about them, it identified a lot of things that we probably can work on. So we can, open to suggestions. I can talk to, Dr. Williams and Ms. Willis. We kind of put those together last time. And so we can maybe get back together and start thinking about, are there things that out of those meetings that we need to revisit, or however we want to go forward, and plan on that, probably over the summer, working on some of that stuff would be my thought. So I'm open to any other suggestions as well, but it does feel like we started something and we left it hanging. And so I'd really like to get back to that, because I imagine when we get to our legislative priorities, those two are probably still going to be sticking around in some form or the other. Maybe hopefully even moved up the list. That'd be great. Mr. Clements.
When
you have your hand.
We had those last year, we had a smaller group, a roundtable of the legislative caucus with a smaller group of people. And then we had a larger group later on where we showed the videos. That one we invited Board of Aldermen and other people to that meeting. I think that could be two venues we consider moving forward to include those very things we need to address unhoused people and gun violence, and that little bit of ARPA money that's floating around. That might be a good thing for us to include the Board of Aldermen. Now, they're going to be out of session at this time, but the next session is still coming up. Thank you.
Yes, excellent point. Excellent point. Any other thoughts on any of that? Okay, well, like I said, just reach out to me if anything comes up, and we'll sort of work on that. So I think our next meeting. So if I think it probably would be scheduled for around it'll be the week after session. I think it'll be the week after session ends. So we'll do a final wrap up and we can plan for going forward. So all right. Well, if there's nothing else, we can be adjourned. Thank you all very much. 33 minutes. So there we go.
Congratulations
Have a
to
nice night.
everybody. This was a good season. Thank you.
Absolutely, it was great.
Excellent work. Excellent
Thank
work.
you, everybody.
Yeah, really
Bye.
good work. Thank you, everybody.